a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding
Reality.
Welcoming to the show, Jaya Simrit Kaur and Mark Olly. It is so cool to see you guys. How is everything going over there in the beautiful UK these days?
It is beautiful. Yeah, it's going great. Thank you.
Yeah, we've had a short heat wave, so it actually feels quite nice over here at the moment.
Oh, crazy.
Meaning it's not freezing at the moment.
Yeah,
right.
We're not talking like California temperatures here. You know, it's just not cold.
Not as cold as a heat wave. Got it. Yeah, and we've been getting pelted with hail. We had fist-size hail come down the other day. It's crazy.
Oh
I put a video up on it. Yeah, I put a video up on it on Instagram. It was nuts. Mary and I were sitting out there, and all of a sudden you just hear this thing that sounded like a big frog hitting the ground. I was like, was that a frog that just fell out of a tree or something? Because, yeah, it was overcast. It was coming in, but no rain, no wind. And all of a sudden you just started hearing thuds. And then we all have metal roofs out here in the country. So then it was banging off the metal. And it's like somebody dumped a bunch of, like a massive bucket of baseballs out at high altitude, and they just all came down. Golf balls and baseballs
so it must have caused damage, right?
No, metal roof. We did great. And it all came down straight. So we didn't lose any windows. And I parked my car in the garage. So we had, honestly, it all worked out wonderfully. So yeah, it was just nuts and insane and loud as hell. Even in the house, it sounded like Godzilla stepping on the roof. It was nuts.
Yeah, that's very intense.
Yeah. So that's enough about me. Let's talk about y'all. What were you saying, Mark?
I was just going to say, we're living up to our name. We have apparently got a 6-mile long wall of rain. 600-mile long wall of rain rolling in at the moment.
So, is that true?
Yeah,
oh my
that's
gosh.
coming. It's coming.
Well, hopefully it hits you like this and not like this, right?
No, it's coming sideways on, so it's coming like a line across the west, and it'll roll over to the east, which is what it usually does. And but we need some water. We need more water.
Spring storms. I'm telling you, man, it's wild. It really is. But it's moving energy around, and you can tell they're getting intense. I think that you, Jaya, are into energy. You feel this. Have the storms changed a little bit to you, and do you think it's based on everything going on, or is it weather modification?
I mean, the weather patterns, but as well as the solar energy is just very intense, and then the physical weather is super influenced by the solar energy. So it's very intense. Yeah, and it's also like very interesting to see the mirroring of the energy in the collective with the energy in the cosmos and the energy of the weather.
Totally. And there's a fascinating thing that our mutual friend Ben said about, and shout out Ben for the connection here.
Yay, Ben!
I know. I love him. He's a frequency theorist too. And he was talking about the correlation. We're going to do a deep dive on this, but just real quick, the correlation between catch and release fishing and UFO abductions, where people are sent back. Now, if you think about this, I started the wheel started turning immediately when he told me this. And I'm sitting here on the phone with him just going, holy shit, thinking of all the cases where people were out fishing. And then you talk about USOs and all that. Think of Pascagoula, man. They were scooped up. Parker and Calvin were scooped up on a fishing trip. They went from one fishing location to another, get scooped up by something nuts, caught and released. And they were doing the same thing. So it's kind of interesting that if humans choose catch and release fish, that they seem to also maybe get abducted or have something to do with that. And I asked him why, and he said because God's got a sense of humor. And I thought that was a great answer.
That is a great answer, and that's like the perfect thing to talk to Ben about also.
He is awesome, and we will shout him some more love here. Thank you so much, Ben. Anyway, so yeah, it's a wild ride out here, and you two are doing something amazing and awesome. And so I just would like to get you on here, and so we are. While you're in town hanging out with our dear friend Mark Olly here, and we brought you up on the last Frequency Theorist, actually, Jaya. So it's great to now introduce the audience to who caught that Frequency Theorist episode, The Bell Tolls for Thee, and it's going to be linked down below. I'll go ahead and link it. And it is cool to see you. So if you don't mind, Darlene, in your own words, just tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so I first wanted to say thank you, Brandon, for introducing me to Mark. which is why I'm here and have had such an amazing experience, but I'll talk about that in a second. So I am a spiritual healer and teacher and mystic mentor. And I've been on like a 6+ year spiritual pilgrimage continuously. So I'm not just traveling, but I am going to, like, everywhere I go is a pilgrimage, and that's been such an amazing expansion for my practice, both internally and also with my clients. And then I'm doing work with them in these sacred sites. And because I'm doing spiritual healing, not energy healing, we're in this space beyond any limitations of time and space. And so they're also there with me, and they're like receiving dreams of being in the cathedrals I'm going to, and receiving healing while they're sleeping, and being there. And it's so cool to see this multi-dimensional work happen. But yeah, I'm primarily a spiritual healer and teacher.
So interesting. She's going to be linked down below, guys. Definitely check her out, your Instagram and your booking site as well.
Yes.
And then you are sitting there with our dear friend, Mark Olly, who I've got a stack of books back here, and we're absolutely going to bring some of these up. I'm having you on soon to talk about Green Man specifically.
We'll do that in more detail in the future. Definitely.
Yeah, we got you coming up for that. But we're going to talk about some of this that's tying in. And guys, this is going to be linked down below. Could not recommend this thing more. Look at this awesome thing. And will you please say that you read the title of it better than I do? Okay,
it's called The Polychronicon of Merlin, Joseph and Arthur. And all that big word means is a chronological history. That's all it means. History in order. Couldn't be easier, really.
History in order. That's amazing. And, it's a nice break from his story, which is all these silly narratives that have been running around the realm that are very interesting and coming out as just absolute crap. And if you kind of want to tie in the modern technology to it, even modern systems of computing are sitting there looking at the narrative and saying, hang on, that it could not have happened like that with physical limitations and blah, blah, blah. So you two, though, are doing awesome things over there. And you both are just this amazing. We had a conversation the other day when we were setting this up, and it was just awesome to see you both sit there and glow and light up off of each other. Letting the audio only audience know as well, she's got some slides that we're going to share here. So if you can scramble down to the video version, it's linked down directly down below. Definitely check this out, because they're going to take us on the walk that for what Jaya has been doing with Mark there recently. But Jaya, you've got a massive portfolio of work that you've been doing, like you were saying, traveling for 6 years, and we've got some more to dive into with that. But with you two hanging out together, it was just the coolest thing. I'm sitting here thinking about, and we're going to get into it, but sort of this psychic archaeologist combination to where I remember back in the, 2000s and 90s, there were all those shows about psychic detectives. Do you remember this, where detectives would go and they would call on the aid of a psychic to go help them solve crimes and shit?
Yeah.
And there's famous cases of this in real life as well. Mark, what do you think about this? The psychic and the archaeologist, is this a new duo?
No, it's been going on a long time. The only thing is, archaeologists have just tried to keep it under the carpet. They like to keep it under wraps. It's taken probably 120 years for them to admit that 80% of archaeologists are dowsers. That was bad enough. That was a major hurdle to try and get over. But the idea of actually visualizing on top of that and using psychometry and questing and ley lines and, but at the end of the day, all that's well established. That's old school now, and it's all there. So really my job is just to take people to where they need to be and then just kind of let them loose. And that's kind of where Jaya comes in. She's been on these sites, so I can only say, bricks and mortar, archaeology, history, documents and all that. But then whatever's there, Jaya is going to pick it up, and the same is true of anybody else that goes to any of these sites. They should switch on. Don't just stop at what's in front of you. Don't just look at it and go, hey, fantastic pile of 700-year-old rocks. No, there's more to it. And hopefully through this show, we'll kind of demonstrate how that's true,
Do you see why he's one of my favorite dudes ever? I know you know this, Jaya, and you've gotten to hug him before I did, and that's okay. I'm not that jealous. But I'd love, because he's got ists in the back of his names, but they don't govern the way that he sees the world. Do you see? He's willing to add new information to it. And this is fascinating. When you said this, Mark, it makes me think about how all sitting presidents had astrologers, right? And they say that, astrology is very gaslit in the mainstream and it's very bullshit. What you get in newspapers and unspecific and blah, blah, blah. But then they say that millionaires don't use astrologers, but billionaires do. And so it's fascinating.
I can't believe you're saying that. I always say that to people.
Oh, this is gonna be riddled with synchronicities. I can already feel it. And this is something again, same thing. You and I both say this to people all the time. And this is the point: is that maybe psychics have been used in archaeology, the good ones, and it's gaslit for other people because because of how powerful it is. And Mark, you're willing to recognize this, man.
Well, it's the sites are there for a reason. Every single aspect of any sacred site, its alignment, its location, its environment, all of that is done spiritually. It's not necessarily just done physically. So here we are, 700, 800, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, who knows how much further down the line. As soon as we get on those sites, we've got to try and see it through the eyes of the people that set them up. It's that simple, really. And if we don't, then we could miss something. But even if we don't, that's not the be-all and end-all. If we've worked on ourselves and developed ourselves, we'll pick up on what they've left behind anyway. It'll hit us like a ton of bricks, particularly a couple of the sites that I've had Jaya come and visit with me in recent times. I think to say you lit up like a Christmas tree is understating it.
Yeah, especially... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Take over.
Especially the sites that... Because, it's... someone like myself, it's so special and unique, and I'm so grateful to be, being shown these sites by not only an archaeologist, but Mark, who is not just a regular archaeologist by any means, and to go to a site like the main one we're going to talk about a little bit later that nobody even knows is a site. So it's we're there, and these kids are running around over this stone and dropping their ice cream popsicles, and I'm oh my God, Joseph, the uncle of Jesus, is right here underneath my feet, and nobody even knows that. And so it's so special to be able to experience it with Mark in that way. And what happens is while we're driving to these places, Mark is giving me all the history, and I'm asking 700 million questions, and then I leave everything he's taught me completely out of my whole mind, my whole field, and just open and see what is actually the truth here, and let that experience move through me. And one thing we were talking about that's really interesting is some of the sites in the UK will well, are they really what they say they are and what they're known for or not? And well, maybe I've been there and there's a lot of energy. Well, okay, but that energy could be projected onto it by the people who think. And so someone like me who isn't just feeling energy, but I'm going very, very, very deep, can go underneath all those layers and see is this a projection of consciousness of people who want this to be this? Or is this something real? And if it is, what is it? And if it's not, where is the thing that they're saying is supposed to be here? So there's so many layers. And it's been honestly, I couldn't have even dreamed of being able to do this with Mark. So thank you so much, Mark.
In fact, we're going to do exactly what you've just said in 2 days' time.
Yeah, so we need to have part 2 because we're going to 10 more sites after this.
We've been to the real Glastonbury, which is in North Wales. And then 2 days' time, we're going to another Glastonbury, which is the one that everybody else knows about, which has all the energy. It's been charged up. Thousands of people have been there, putting the energy into it. It's a great site. It's fabulous. But back to what Jaya was saying, it's going to be interesting to see what she picks up at Glastonbury, whether or not it compares to where we've already been. So you've got us in mid-flow. You've caught us right in the middle of this quest. Cool. It's she's doing Wales and Arthur up here in this area, and then next minute she's down in Somerset and Cornwall. So, it's which one's going to win? We don't know. We're not at the end of this yet. We're not at the end of it by a long shot. Well, then again, there might be 2 winners. Maybe both sides have got, merit. We'll see.
I think so for sure, because I have been to Glastonbury and there was a tremendous amount of energy there. But does that mean it's what everyone says it is? I don't think so, no. Is it on ley lines? Yes. And is there a tremendous amount of energy? Yes. But the hidden history is a whole different ballgame. So we can definitely do part 2 with South UK, and this is part 1 with the North.
All right, excellent delineation. Thank you.
Because we'll be in different parts of the world again. So, but we got to do it. We definitely got to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's brilliant. And what you were saying about the different energies at different sites kind of being apprehensions, they're not legit. So yes, you feel something there, but some people say this about Bigfoot as well, this sort of idea that in the forest there are entities that will give off bad vibes so that you just feel sick around them or project a certain frequency that infrasound. I know that Bigfoots are also known for, but animals such as crocodiles and things have this as well. But they're also low that it freezes, it petrifies you, and you can feel these energies. And then if they're doing something else, physical rocks, if they've got something right underneath the ground, maybe they carved a bunch of things and then time just came in and swept it all over and it's all still there. And I've heard of people hiding Ouija boards in unfinished homes as they're building them to get bad voodoo on the house. So another reason to build your own house, by the way. But anyway, it's just really interesting, all these apprehensions of energy. I mean, the list goes on. Schools being these horrible portals being put under playgrounds to suck kids' energies and attach all kinds of shit to them. Amusement parks being the same thing, energy harvesting centers. So when you come across these things, the energy that you get, do you get this sense of fuckery and then the real energy? And that's one of your skills, is to be able to pick out not only are there energy here, but here's the fake one and here's the legit. And then how do you do that? Are you able to turn off the unlegit one and kind of amplify the good one, or?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'm going to go in like different directions to answer it. And I also want to say, like, in addition to all of that, there's also the literal egregor of the projection of what people have placed onto it. So like, let's say it's supposed to be like an ancient burial ground from like some sacred whatever, or like a skull, like we were talking about Magdalene's skull in the south of France, which is where I'm going next after I leave the UK. And so like some people will go, for example, and say like, oh, this is definitely it. I felt the energy. But there's also the egregor, which is the projected consciousness of all the pilgrims who have gone there and prayed to it. And then it becomes like a different frequency of that thing itself. And so, and then that leads to a whole other group of questions. Like, does that mean that it can be healing? Maybe so. And does that mean it could be illegitimate, but also still powerful? So it's such a layered question.
It's so, just real quick, because egregores, tulpas, and the like homunculuses and things like this fascinate me, because it's a real thing, but it's not a real thing. It's only a real thing because you give it power, and you give things like Tinkerbell.
So it is a real thing.
Exactly. And so this is where real becomes it can only, I feel, be presented in quotes, honestly. This is where like Garfield is not real, but if somebody's wearing a Garfield t-shirt on a bus and somebody else is reading a Garfield book and they're like, oh my God, and they connect over Garfield, they connected over a non-real thing, but it's real, right? It made a real connection. But these are amplified and animated energies that are able to, again, be kind of given life. And then from their time of creation, or whenever they're homunculate out, every single person who goes there and prays to that deity then is adding energy to it. And what do a lot of people bring to deities? They bring their woes and sorrows and worries and all that kind of stuff, right? And they're begging, and it's interesting just kind of then what power people will offer over to this thing, and then what it would turn into after having all this power offered over to it. And that's what you're dealing with out here.
Well, that's what we're all dealing with, just like always, you know? And then also like there's stories of people being healed by things that are supposed to be holy artifacts or whatever, and they were fakes. But like it's also brings in the power of belief. Like if I think it's real and I think it's going to heal me, then it could. And that's also like the placebo effect, right? Which we know is proven. So there's so many layers. And then also just back to Garfield, like most fictional characters, even cartoons, there are actual like spirits of them in the ethers. And most of them are in the astral, so they're not like very powerful, sorry, but it's true. But yeah, like those, like I've seen like Superman in someone's field, and I'm like, because they love Superman and there's this egregor created. So this question, we could talk about the answer to this for like an entire podcast episode. Absolutely. Because there's so many dimensions and to that.
Well, let's get back to superhero egregores in the afterthought, but please continue. I'm going to write it down. Go ahead. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, like I'm trained and I'm in continuous training in a very, very deep field So I'm able to, because of that, see many of the dimensions and move through them, and they're all at their own frequency. So I could sit somewhere and feel like the projections that pilgrims have brought, and then also like the original whatever it was, and then also maybe like the secondary where it was. And then I've also seen like the future of like a site and things as well. So I just sit and do what I do and move through all of them, and that's really the answer.
You have straight up psychometry, which is one of my favorite that's one of the two I would take. Teleportation and psychometry. It's being able to touch or be in an object and see the whole history of it, right? That is so interesting. Can you control it? Like, is it maddening?
Yeah, you have to learn to control it, because otherwise it would be maddening. Just like someone who, like myself, who's very, very sensitive to energy, like if you don't learn how to control it, you'll go crazy or you'll completely shut it down. So that's one of the things, because it's worth saying, like, everyone, I'm not special. Everyone can absolutely learn this. Like, and this is something that I teach a lot of my clients and students. Like, we go through the necessary steps, first of all, to bring you back to your body. Second of all, to like make you feel safe and release trauma, and then allow you to this expansion safely in a process. And then the gifts start to pop open. And then people will be like, oh my God, I remember that when I was a kid, I used to, and it was completely shut down. So this is something that anyone can absolutely do. And if you get really good at it, you don't even have to be in that place. This is something that our friend Ben can do. We can bilocate. We can go into, like, I can see a picture of something and then be like, let me put my consciousness there, go in that room, and then feel like, what is this? So it's absolutely something that can be learned. The problem most of the time is people's brains only have a 3-second attention span because they're looking at their cell phones all day. And, the programmed dopamine, etc. situation is I hear all the time from people, I can't meditate. So everyone can learn to do these things. However, you have to be willing to have the discipline to actually like sit and go through the movements of that.
And you are special. It's the only thing I will disagree on there. Mark, what do you think about this, man? These sites and running around and doing it this way? Because, I mean, Jaya, are you able to like see hidden rooms and be like, you should dig here? There's shit right there, like under the ground. You could see stuff like under the Sphinx. I
would love to be able to and I've said this, like actually go on a dig on a like live site to be able to do that and walk around and see like, let's look here, And one of the sites that we went to, they did, I mean, not psychically, but they did like the, what's it called? The
ground penetrating radar.
Ground penetrating radar.
Yeah, but they did it over here instead of over here.
They went on the wrong part of the site and missed it.
Which is so interesting. So having someone, like myself in that space would be really cool for that reason.
I do. And they've already written it off. And so you could go out there with your own thing. That's brilliant.
When I ran an archaeology unit for 12 years, we had 3 of us that did it. And you know how, I mean, if you watch any of these archaeology programs, they're always digging up like tiny walls and bits of pottery and this, that and the other, and if you use geophysics you always miss the target, which again is like Jaya says, on this other site they went in the wrong place and missed the target. In 12 years we never missed a single target. So that is absolutely 100% proof that, psychometry, dowsing, whatever you want to call it, if you're on the land with your feet on the land and you're open, the land will tell you. Yeah. It'll tell you what you need to know.
Absolutely.
Totally. So it's 100%. I mean, we did it semi-professionally and we did it professionally, and there's lots of archaeologists out there that won't talk about it but do it anyway. I'm pretty sure about 80% of diggers actually, and archaeologists and site managers and people that work in museums, there's a great story of the Hexham heads, which they're very famous. 3 or 4 Celtic heads that were found up at Hexham in Yorkshire, and they put them in a museum basement and they scared every single person in the museum. Doesn't matter who they were, if it was the top curator or just somebody going in, scared everybody witless. And it's 3 or 4 pieces of stone, but the power that was carried in these Hexham heads, people were hearing voices, they were seeing visions, there was stuff going on. that's quite common. If you actually if you understand the sort of the paranormal world as it used to be known, if you understand paranormal, then these heads, that kind of thing from Celtic heads, it's known to happen. Well, it happens from sites, it happens from stones, it happens from buildings, it happens from locations. As Jaya was saying, there's so much energy in some of these places that's been put into the earth. It's going to come back. We are creative beings. That's what differentiates us from other creatures on Earth. We are self-creative. We think it, and then all of a sudden, the next minute, wham! It's out in the physical world. Every single thing we're looking at on this laptop, in this room, wherever we are, the listeners who are listening to this, the people that are viewing this, everything is created by us. But it all started off in our heads. It all began invisibly. It was all invisible. Well, we were no different. 1,000 years, 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, 10,000 years ago, we were no different. We were still the same beings. So that's still there. Imagine all that accessible knowledge and energy. It's all still there. All we need are the beings that within ourselves. We need to be able to reach out and touch that. We need to be able to feel it and understand it. A little bit of physical knowledge helps. If you start off on the right spot at the right time, right place, right time. I think that's possibly where astrology comes in, actually, because it's always operating. We're sat in the middle of a gigantic clock that's ticking away permanently. So you're always within time and space somewhere. You're always there somewhere. So I kind of look at it that way. It's a case of pulling all those different threads together, putting yourself in the right place at the right time, and off you go. Plug in, off you go. It's all there. I hope he's searching for something here. I can see.
It's funny. It's just funny you mentioned this, because Jaya, your work is sort of like what I was talking about us. Mary and I did a lot of travel in 2024, and people like you, I kind of think of us all as, and Ben as well, he's transient as well. And then we'll get not stuck, but he'll hang out somewhere for a minute and then move and then hang out somewhere. And it's interesting because we're sort of all physically making these grid points or constellations on the realm. And it's like where you're physically located and I'm physically located, we ping off of each other in this beautiful symphony. And so you might find yourself in some weird place and be like, why the hell am I here? You're supposed to be there, dude. You're there to heal the room, first of all. And secondly, you're probably a grid point for something cool. And especially if you're being called somewhere, Jaya just happens to take herself up on that. It's cool.
Yeah, we kind of hit that in a very practical way on one of the adventures we were on, because we were going through Wales, which is middle of nowhere. It's just hills and tiny roads and this, that and the other. And I'm desperately trying to get us to where we're going. And I know exactly which road we're supposed to take. And we hit a, sorry, road closed, not coming through here. So I just instinctively decided I was going to pull in. I had dozens of cars behind me, but I thought, no, I'm not going to just follow the crowd, not going to follow the diversion. I pulled in. About couldn't be more than a minute or two after we'd actually pulled in. I'd only had time to pick the map up. And there's a bloke outside my window in another car going, come on, follow me. I know how to get over the hill. Where are you going? Valley Cruises? Yeah, we'll get you to that, Abbey. No problem at all. And sure enough, we only lost a matter of about 5 minutes on that journey, because we were pushed for time.
We didn't lose anything.
Well, we didn't lose anything.
It was so beautiful. That was definitely divine intervention.
And I mean, the drive that he took us on was amazing, and we came in a totally different way than we otherwise would have done, and there it was. Exactly what we needed when we needed it.
And on that drive was the point that things really started opening up for me. Like, that's when the land started talking to me, when we were still like 5-10 miles away, and that's when every tree that we passed was like, how old are the trees there? Hundreds, thousands?
Hundreds
I mean, every tree
years,
we passed was like, I mean, I almost started to go into this altered state of like a psychedelic journey, and like the trees were talking and they were pushing us, and they all became gates moving us and pulling us to Valley Crew, and it was so beautiful. I started, like, my psychic smells started coming online. I started receiving all of this information. So yeah, that was definitely divine intervention for sure.
Amazing. I'm going to do my best not to ask you what ghost farts smell like with your psychic smell, but there's no guarantees on this, okay?
Well, I've never smelled a ghost fart, I don't think.
How are you sure? Yeah, it could just smell like popcorn. Old school ghost farts could just smell like Orville Redenbacher these days. You
Well,
know? You know what I mean?
If I smell one, I will let you know.
Well, the famous one's perfume, isn't it? Perfume's the famous one.
Perfume is,
or
and
tobacco smoke. That's the other famous one.
Tobacco's a big one. Roses is a big one, which is always the Divine Mother.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody wears perfume and smokes. I think everybody farts.
true.
So I would think you'd get a bigger ratio as farts. If we're just going ratio of smells here, produced by, I don't know. I'm just going with it. But
I
yes,
don't think
Marie
any of
Antoinette's
the
an
ghosts I
interesting
hang out with give me farts.
Yeah, the ones in this house are clean. You know, they don't. You know, I can't vouch for the people that
They're
live
stuck
here,
up. I don't know.
but,
Maybe they're just not free to be
Gyre
themselves.
accepting,
Maybe have you ever
but,
let them know they can just be themselves? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Fascinating. And before we get to more of these farts, let's get to some of your images that you've done because it does just get more immature from here. If we just let me talk. But this is absolutely fascinating. And Mark, what we call that in Texas is Texas exit, buddy. We will get right up on and just a mild amount of traffic on a highway, and we just go down the hill and off into the fader called a Texas exit. But it's nice to know you guys are out there yeehawing it too.
Right, okay. I'm going to keep this one really simple. I put a lot of photographs on that I was only going to mention if they came up in conversation, so I'm definitely not going to use all of mine. The reason for putting this one on is obviously people who are just listening to this on audio won't realise this. It's a map with water on, and basically what you've got is on one side of the map across a very wide river is Liverpool, which is a major UK city. So if people want to go and have a look at Liverpool, go and have a look at Liverpool. That's your sort of major starting point. On the other side of the river, which on this image is on the left-hand side, is the Wirral. Now, the Wirral has been rising continuously over the last 2,000 years. It's coming up out of the sea. So what's happened is that the sea level appears to have dropped, okay? Go back 2,000 years, Joseph of Arimathea turns up in 52 AD. The Wirral wasn't what it appears to be. It's actually a landscape that was mostly underwater. And what you're looking at on this map is the circle. The white circle is Bidston Hill. And the little red dots, I think Jaya's just put an arrow on one. We think that's the landing point for Joseph of Arimathea, who then proceeded up the hill to the next red dot, which is that one, where there's a carving of a first century Christian in prayer with their arms outstretched. I'm keeping this brief because most people claim it's a Viking woman, but it's not. It's got no boobs and its bits have been chiseled off, so you know it's a bloke. And he stood facing where the sun rises with his arms outstretched, which is part of the story that I'm telling you now. He's facing the sunrise over Liverpool. The next dot, which is the top of Bidston Hill, that's actually where I went and collected Jaya from. It's the observatory on the top of Bidston Hill, where she'd already spent quite a profitable weekend doing healing and what have you there, quite a few days there. But that's where Joseph then got on a horse, because there's a carving of a horse's head with a first century wheel cross carved on it. And then he proceeds down the Celtic Ridgeway to Prenton Wood. Now, the reason I say Prenton Wood is because the Victorians excavated round Celtic cells, which indicate the presence of a monastery, around a well, which has been there thousands and thousands of years. That, I think, is where the Grail Chapel would have been. Now, I've got to say this, apart from the carvings, and there's a lot of them, the rest of what I've just described has vanished. It's disappeared. The landing site is now under an industrial estate. Prenton Wood's in private ownership, but there was a ring of standing stones in Prenton Wood, and 2 of them are still in there. But that, I think, forget Weary All Hill. It's never been Weary All Hill. In the oldest Welsh legends, going back to, the 10th, the 9th, the 8th century, it's Wirral Hill. And that's where it is. It's Wirral Hill. So actually, the whole of our quest began there. It just meant to be. That's where Jaya was going anyway. She was destined to be there. And that's where we started. So anyway, there you go.
Which mind you, I had no idea, and I just went to Bidston Hill because this is where the observatory was, where I went for a healing congregation, a spiritual constellation healing congregation. So I had no idea about any of this, but as soon as I got there, I sure felt a tremendous amount of things, and like in the wood here, is one of where I spent, as when I wasn't doing healing work, I was in the woods, and there is a huge clearing in the woods that as soon as I stepped in, I was like, there have been so many different rituals done here by so many different lineages, and it was absolutely beautiful. I didn't know we were going to talk about that, so I don't have any images of that pulled up. But I think it's worth noting that I am like largely on like a biblical pilgrimage, and I didn't even know that. But this is where I had to be. And mind you, also I came all the way from South America to come here, so I couldn't have gotten farther. But when I knew this congregation was happening, I was like, I have to be there. And it would take an hour just to talk about what I had to go through to actually get here. But I did. And so it's very interesting that I ended up right here where Joseph of Arimathea was.
Dude, what is this island called again? How do you spell it? The World?
It's Wirral, Wirral. It's the Wirral. And actually now it's not an island. It's a huge square piece of land that juts out into the sea.
Because all of this that's blue here was underground, but it's not
underwater.
now.
Yeah, that's
Underwater,
that's where the ocean. I've got a friend of mine that works in archaeogeology, and he looks at things, he can take things back in time, and he can see how things would have changed. And what he did to produce that map for me was he put in the rising level of the ground. He also allowed for an earthquake that occurred that split the two things and created the river between them. And then he also then looked at differences in sea levels, and there's a computer program that does it, so you can literally press go. You can go, hey, 50 AD, where was the sea in 50 AD? Push the button, wallop, and that's what he came up with. And the minute I saw that, I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what that's showing us. That's showing us the island that Joseph landed on in 52 AD. There
It's not an island now. That's fascinating.
No, it's not an island now, but the carvings also, you've got physical evidence actually there carved into the rocks. That basically is the story we're looking at. The modern day interpretation, smoke and mirrors, going back to how they hide things, and they give you, false information. It's nothing to do with the Vikings whatsoever. The Vikings didn't stand there with their arms outstretched, praying to the rising sun. That's 1st, 2nd and 3rd century Christians. That's what it is. And all the rest of the symbolism that's carved into that particular part of the hill is early Christian symbolism. That's what it is. It's telling you.
And so for those who might not know, Joseph of Arimathea is the uncle of Jesus, and he was put with many other disciples on the boat straight away after the ascension. And it is thought by probably most people in the world that he went to where Glastonbury is now. And that's why people go there. That's sort of the beginning of that. And that is said to be, that the famous abbey there is said to be the first Christian church. I don't know how many people, Mark can maybe say, actually know that it's actually not. It's actually this.
That big dot.
But of course, right. That makes the most sense in the world because it's all inverted out here. Yeah. You guys are the ones that are figuring this out.
Yeah. Well, that's the Grail Chapel. And then the big circular, famous, round one that he builds in North Wales. He builds at Llangollen, which is the site of Valley Crucis, which is where he was buried, which is where we went.
Dude, this is so cool. I'm going to just, because we're already in it, I know it should have done this a minute ago, but
here we go.
Going for it. So audio only audience, please check the show description down there for the video version of this. Come join us. Oh my God, this is so cool. And dude, that's been flooded out. Look, that arch should have been, oh my God, this is so cool.
Let me start with the...
While we're finding the photos, it is a seriously big abbey. It's equal to...
And this is the big red dot on the hill?
No. This now we've jumped into North Wales because basically he built two chapels. He built the one for the Grail where he puts his staff in and you get the white thorn, and that's Wirral Hill. But the circular one, this is where it gets really clever. Is this one? This is the round one. This is just outside Llangollen, next to the Grail Castle, and it's a recognised holy site for that by certain people in the know. It's not widely known.
Dude, it's beautiful.
There is a map for
these are great pictures. Thank y'all for sharing these.
No, share the pictures.
This is the entrance. And then this is right through there when you go in.
That's relevant because that's the area that the geophys, they basically went for the obvious, because where Jaya's indicating now, that's the high altar. So they thought, oh, right, that's where they'll bury Joseph. He'll be under the high altar, no problem at all. So they did all of that and didn't find anything, because what you need to do is look in the centre of the original circle.
So if you go in here, just to the right.
Look at this. Now,
you walk in through here from what you've just seen, and this is like well, you can describe it maybe for the audio people.
This is where it gets really interesting. You're going to love this. All my hair's standing on end because I know that I'm right with this, okay? The Da Vinci Code, okay, watch the movie, and at the end of that you've got Langston going off to, you know, the Scottish chapel up there, and he's rummaging through the chapel, and he comes down into what is basically a priest's robing room. That's basically where he ends up, and then he finds the secret doorway at the end of the movie, and he drops through into the cavity, you know, where Mary's supposed to be, but of course she's gone. All he finds is a vase with a rose in, okay? That you're looking at now is the robing room of Valley Crucis, next to the main abbey building. So actually, in that film, they're telling you that Joseph, his burial, because possibly there is a Mary there, we're not sure whether it's Mother Mary or Magdalene, but there's a Mary in the equation. But they're telling you that he's under that robing room. He's not under the big abbey next door. He's under there. So I'm convinced I'm not the only person that's worked this out. In fact, we might actually have a shot of the stone he's under. I
was waiting.
There it is.
Everybody get ready.
Get ready. In that floor, there is a big stone. It's the biggest stone there is. And that, in fact, the black residue in the centre is absolutely bullseye in the middle of the whole circular site. So if he was buried in the centre of the circular church, in the centre of the circular site, inside the circular bank and ditch enclosure, then the centre of that is that spot. That's where he is. He's under that stone.
This isn't where kids have dropped ice cream?
No, yeah, it is. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, this itself is holy water that I've put on it as an offering.
If you hit
dead
that
on
green
too,
one.
dude, this is incredible.
This will take 2 seconds for you to get this, okay? This is really simple. The only thing that's really important on here, the white dotted line is the boundary of the monastic site, okay? But the circle is the white circle is the bank and ditched enclosure, and all you have to do is put the crosshairs on, and the centre of that cross is bang over that slab in the floor, which they missed. They never geophysed it. They never checked it.
I still think this is for you. I think that's why they didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. That's my sense, was that it was absolutely divine intervention. They did not want to be found and disturbed and dug up by, you know, people who had no care or interest to know. Here's me laying on the stone.
That'll give you some idea of scale as well. It's not an enormous building,
and so that stone is that like a plug on the top of his body, and they just kind of lowered it in, kind of standing upright, is that to enter something below?
The Victorians basically put these floors in. So the Victorians dropped these in. So all the floors, if you like, are not medieval. They're basically early modern. But, and this is the kicker, he's under there. He's probably about 40 feet down. The original story describes this Victorian antiquarian in the 1820s digging up a flight of steps, which he continued to dig. And then the report is really specific. It says he broke through into a Roman crypt. Now, the Roman crypt where Joseph's buried is under this part of the building. It's below that. So if you can imagine that's like a rectangle, but it's sat on top of a circle, a circular crypt. It's under there. And we've got evidence of the stairs in the next room as well. We can see where there was a cavity that they've deliberately blocked up in the wall, where there were steps going up, but steps going down as well. So no wonder they didn't find it under the other church, because it isn't there. It's under there. So Joseph's quite a long way down. Jaya did an amazing job of sensing the presence, because it's through stone, it's through rock, it's through the roof of the actual undercroft itself, all the way down to where he's buried. He's a long way down, but he's under there. I'm absolutely convinced.
Go ahead.
You can see, even though like these stones were added later and they're not original, it's completely different size and shape to all the other stones.
Yes, somebody knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
It's like a key. It's like, hey, here it is, a keystone, and it has the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6
it's
sides.
Like we'll put this here because if anyone comes along in the future and knows what they're looking for, they'll know what they're looking at. That happens all over the world. If you're on the story,
what do you feel when you lay down on this thing?
Oh my gosh. It was so much. So when I first went in, I just knelt just to pay my respects and, come in humility. And I just knelt down and I put my hands on the stone. And when I did that, like a current went through my whole body, like up my arms into my jaw, and I just started like opening. So which as I mentioned, the field was already quite alive from just the journey was kind of like pulling us in. And so I just like really grounded myself so that I could feel and experience it all. And it was so many things at once. It was kind of like when I'm channeling and like everyone wants to talk at once. It was very much like that. So it was just a lot of information, but I would say once I sort of like let that pass through me and went the next layer, it felt very masculine, but very integrated masculine. So it felt very, very much like a loving presence, but not like a Mother Mary or a Magdalene, which is, embodied feminine, but it was like a gentle, loving masculine presence. And because Mark said, it's not known if there's a Mary buried there as well, I was like, okay, as I said, putting everything aside that we had just discussed and like, what do I feel? And I felt the frequency and the energy of Joseph. It's difficult to talk about because it's so many things, but
can I jump in and talk about, if I talk about the Welsh Grail, that'll make it slightly more masculine again.
Okay.
Can you run us along the bottom to that end.
You guys are such an awesome duo, by the way. I love that you're out there just doing archaeology together and cool shit. I just love
brilliant.
this.
I'm loving
I want y'all to
every
make a TV show together. I would watch the shit out of it.
Yeah, we can do
right.
that. Yeah.
We accept.
Yeah, we accept that. Yeah. The photo that's up on screen now, that's a Welsh photo in a Welsh chapel. It's slightly later. It's not medieval. It's just after medieval. But that is their interpretation of Joseph of Arimathea. Now, the real key to it all, and this is the real kicker, this is, if you want to go to the absolute gold standard, when he was buried, they buried with him two things that are described as cruets. Now, these could be glass containers, or they can be stone containers, or rarely they can be metal, so they could be silver. But one of them contains the blood of Christ, and the other one contains the sweat of Christ. And both of those were collected at the time of the crucifixion. So if he is down there, then that's down there as well. You basically, he's buried with the DNA of God. That's what you've got. So in terms of power centers and powerful sites, it's up there with the best in the world. And probably less than half a dozen people know it's there, unless you buy my book or you watch this podcast. You know what I mean? Till now. Let's get it out there. I'm getting too old to keep secrets, so
I love this so much. And it's interesting too. I'm thinking about the holographic universe, when Michael Talbot was talking about this ritual that's done every year. I'm losing where it was and who it is, but they bring out the blood of a saint, and it's brown and gross and coagulated and old, because it is. And all these people scream and yell at it, and then it turns to liquid and turns to blood right before their eyes. And it does this every year. It's a ritual that they do. So if you're thinking about that, and as well as the energy and all of that, what if, Jesus' blood down there activates like some sort of Ghostbusters 2, when the liquid goo sort of animates out?
It's the Welsh Grail. That's what it is. It's the Holy Grail as far as this country is concerned. That's what it is.
You can keep that old piece of shit. This is the real Grail, huh?
Yeah, this is what keeps us functioning. Oh, there is a real Grail. I can show you a picture of the real Grail. Yeah, chuck that one up. There you go. That's the real one.
It's a little more opulent than I would think. I would think it would have been Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade. I would have chosen
Wait a minute. Now you're looking at two vessels that have been joined together at a later time with gold. Just pop on the one next up. That's the top bit. That's the Grail.
Did he bite it? Is that Jesus's bite mark?
No. A piece was cut out using a knife to send to Saladin by the Templars, but that one's in Spain. That's the Cup of Donna Urraca, and it's in Spain, which I should have actually looked up exactly which church it's in because I can never remember. There was a book came out in 2012 by some Spanish authors that covered it, and it turned up in a medieval shipping receipt. They've got the shipping receipt written in Islamic that says that it was sent to Spain with the Templars. They've actually got it. So again, that information's in my book. So
and say what happened to this piece that was cut out.
That's the bit that was cut out because Saladin. There's all this thing where everybody out there hated everybody else, so we all had crusades. That's nonsense. Saladin actually communicated with the Templars and said, "My daughter is ill, and I would like a piece of that cup to heal my daughter." So they took a knife and just whittled out that piece, sent it to Saladin. The daughter was then cured, and that fragment was kept in his royal treasury. That was it. That was the end of that story. And then the rest of this just carried on. And then it was built into that cup. That cup is the one that's what inspires the Grail, and the Knights of the Holy Grail still guard that in the chapel to this day. So there's still an order looking after it.
Yeah, maybe not very Jesus-like that it's covered in gold and diamonds.
It's just the brown bit at the top.
It's also a great. It's also a great disguise, though, if you think about it, because then they take it, they gold clad it, and then somebody like me, who would have chosen poorly, right, because of the movie, picked this real humble thing. We wouldn't have picked that because of its opulence. But again, it's a Greenland situation. Don't come here,
But Spielberg will have known that, you see, and that's why he did what he did, because he's actually throwing you off the scent.
Is it right? Is it written Grail on the bottom? What are the wording there?
They can trace it. They can literally trace it all the way back 2,000 years to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where they actually had two of them. They're not sure where the other one's gone. The Cup of the Apostles has disappeared, but that's the Cup of Christ. That's the one that was rescued from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And the last missing piece of the whole mystery, which I've got in the book I've written, the translations are in there of the shipping receipts, that was the last bit. And it's one of those things where, last place on earth you would have looked, is in handwritten medieval Islamic shipping receipts in a box in a museum in the middle of nowhere. But these Spanish guys they stumbled across it by accident. They didn't, and I did as well. The book that it's in, I won in a raffle.
Oh my gosh.
And I'd almost finished the King Arthur book, and I won this book in a raffle, and I'm like, this is incredible, and so
God,
absolutely.
What's leading you guys? This is like a divine crusade. I mean, it's so cool. And now you got Jaya, so now it's all wrapping up like crazy because you've done all this legwork historically, and Jaya can come in and go, yeah, he's right down there, about 40 feet down. He farted 800,000 years ago, and I just smell it. Still like popcorn. That's so interesting. This is fascinating, guys.
Yeah, my only wish is that I could have been there to go deeper and like move into the two grails, the one carrying the blood of Christ and the one carrying the sweat of Christ, but like literally as I'm laying on the ground, there's kids running around me and people scream like it's like a tourist excuse me, amusement park, and it's like excuse me, I'm trying to like move into the Christ frequency here, and but it was extremely beautiful, and it was just like an expansive well of healing coming up. Like it was so much, and it was so layered. I was given symbols, and then Mark's daughter Billy, I was told to like have her come and sit opposite me and do the exact same thing with her hands. And I basically like told her telepathically to do that, and she came and did. And then, it was just such a beautiful movement, and it was so full of healing. It was so healing. And one of the first things I got was like, you think it was an accident that they were literally 20 feet away doing all of this, like, how many millions of dollars or whatever they spent to look in there. And it's right here. So again, going back to like the sense of humor.
Speaking of wells and healing, that's what we did before we came here, didn't we?
Yeah, but let's look at one more point from here, which is this.
Oh, that's in the next room. That's the blocked up doorway.
Yeah, so if you go right into the next room, you can see
there was an entrance that goes to the wall's tremendously thick. It's about 12 foot, 2 meters thick. It's a huge dividing wall, and that clearly there's something beyond that. It goes somewhere else, you know, it's there. So I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say, because the other steps in this refectory building go up, I would say that one might be the steps that go down. It makes sense. There's nowhere for it to go if you go up, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, and it's low. You know,
yeah. But it would have been hidden behind the back paneling of a fireplace originally. So I think that's that's important. But yeah, we went and visited. That's the refectory.
So the wall is just here on the left side of this beautiful room,
behind the green column on that side. Mm-hmm. But yeah,
this is stunning.
Before this, we went to Holywell.
I know, so beautiful. So yeah, we can go to Holywell.
Let's do the Holywell. Hit that one there. That's spectacular.
Yeah,
that's Holywell.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's the well itself. You're looking at it. Pumps 160 gallons a minute, and it's got a big pool attached to it that you can actually go in. You know, for healing. So they are. That's it. So these guys went swimming in that before we even got to the Abbey. The reason we went on an Arthur trip is that if you read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, immensely famous, you know, Arthurian tale, it begins at the court of King Arthur at Holywell, and that's here. This is Holywell. This is the Holy Well. It's the second most holy Catholic healing site in the world. There's this one, and then the next one's Lourdes.
Is this where you got your water, Jaya?
Yes, yeah. I have a little bit of it here.
We've been running on holy water all week.
Yeah. Whoa, shit. Yeah.
Oh, it's great
stuff. Demons.
God, there it is. St. Winifred. Now, the interesting thing with St. Winifred, her story is that in the 7th century, just about 100 years after Arthur, Winifred, by the way, is Welsh for Guinevere. So we think there might be a connection between her and the family of Guinevere as well, which I didn't mention, actually. But the thing with this is a chieftain wanted to have his wicked way with her. She refused. So basically, the chieftain cuts her head off. So you're back in the realms of the Celtic legends of the beheading games, like you have in Gawain and the Green Knight and things like that. Her uncle, who is Saint Bueno, picks the head up, sticks it back on, and she lives for another 14 years after that. But damn. Bueno is also in the family tree of Arthur. So there's so many connections. There we are. Brilliant piece of footage. That's the pool you can swim in. And there's not that rock, but the other rock is the one that Bueno knelt on. Under the water. I don't think we've got an image of that, but it's basically a big stone, and it's at the bottom of the pool, and you can kneel on it. Billy had a really good experience.
I do have another video, though.
Well, while you run that, I'll share Billy's experience.
Yeah.
She went in the pool, and the pool was quite crowded, so it's the pool outside. But within 5 or 10 minutes of her getting in, the pool just cleared completely. And Billy does need quite a lot of healing. So you're only supposed to go around it 3 times. You're only supposed to get 10 minutes in it, and that's all you get, you know. No, not Billy. She goes around it 7 times. She's kneeling on the stone. She's literally swimming in it. Everybody's disappeared at this point. I mean, this is on CCTV, so you can't,
there's the stone.
There's the stone. You can see the stone.
Oh, wow,
in the middle of it. That's the stone. So she goes around it 7 times, kneels on that, decides she's then going to float across, and the sky opens, and this enormous pile of sunlight just comes down on her when she's floating in there. She was in there over half an hour.
Which is really, I mean, it was such divine grace, because literally, like, they open, you see its wall, like, gated in. They the person who works there opens it up only for a certain number of minutes and then closes it back up. They opened it up, she went in, they never came back for 30 minutes. You're not allowed to swim in this well. And she was. And similarly, there's a chapel just to the left where I went in to do some candle service healing for my clients, and nobody came in. And I even like felt the presence of the guy working come up behind me, and psychically felt him be like, no, she's doing something, and leave. And it was amazing, especially because like this is now a Catholic site, and I go to a lot of Catholic sites, and I basically have to keep my mouth shut about the fact that I'm a healer, right? Because I'm not a priest, and it's not supposed to be allowed. But the grace there was just tremendous. The healing that came through for my clients. Let me show you the and also
it's just beautiful. I'm just blown away by this architecture. I'm just blown away. And it's got some nodules up top for the acoustics, sort of like a Rosslyn Chapel did. The cymatic nodules.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned Roslin earlier. Yeah. It's got the same kind of thing going. And if you check out, you know how Roslin's carvings are ambiguous. You can't really tell. There might be a Templar carving in there somewhere, you know, and there's a guy on a horse with a guy with a cross behind and all that. The carvings in this are the same. You've really got to look hard to spot them, but they're in there. Oh, that's a gorgeous picture, that one.
So this is St. Guinevere here, and you can see...
Winifred. And that's
Winifred. Yeah. You can see her...
line around the
neck. And then this is Bueno, who... Yeah. Her uncle who saved her.
It's in the bottom of the windows as well.
Yeah, you can see there.
But that's, I mean, Arthur dies in 539. These guys are alive literally 100 years later in the 620s. So it's not a million miles away. You know, the court would still have been there. The ancestors of Arthur would still have been there. Gwain's relatives would still have been there. It would have all still been very much within that bracket. So it had to be. I had to include it in the book. I couldn't leave it out. It's really quite important.
And you can see, and you could see from the movie as well, how this is like a continuous spring. This is not a man-made spring.
It just bubbles all the time.
Yeah, they just built this around it, right?
Yeah, they built that around the original spring. And mathematically, it's interesting as well. If anybody's into the Templars, it's a work of art.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I mean, you got the Merkaba symbolism right there, the square, the inverted triangles. But God, it's fascinating. It's so gorgeous.
It's so beautiful. This is another movie.
The roof one's particularly good. See if you can get that one there, because that's.
It's interesting. The spider web above her head too, and then that. Which sort of gives that impression of the grid that a lot of ancients talk about, and people on DMT, they talk about there's a grid above our heads. Spiderweb is...
all the junctions have carvings on them, and there's some very interesting ones in there.
Yeah, so you can see these carvings here.
Incredible.
Absolutely stunning.
Looks like Gilgamesh.
Look at that.
Enkidu, one of those. But see the cymatics?
It is very much like the Divine Matrix.
Yep. And you have those little nodules up there that if you go back to the beginning of it.
Oh, hang on, I was going to say just.
And then as you go through, I'll tell you. Yeah. So as you come around here, keep going. Pause. Okay, so if you look right there, see those symbols at the top that are joined with those, you know, where they meet, and they've got like the little star, and then the other one has the 4. Those in the Rosslyn Chapel, which we can pull up here, I'll do that, in the Afterthought, are these little nodules that have cymatic images on them. So when you run cymatic frequencies through that.
If you run this right to the end, the very last frame on this video, in Roslyn, you've got a guy holding a cross on the back of a guy on a horse, and right there is the same image of,
right there, yes, above the window.
Yep. Yeah, just next to the window. It's the same.
I can zoom in.
Holy shit.
It's the same carving. It's the same guy on somebody's back. Now, what they say, if you ask in the well, they'll say, oh, it's somebody bringing someone who's paralyzed to be healed. But if you know your Templar stuff, it's the same carving as the one. It's the 2 guys on one horse. That's what it actually is. The same as in Roslyn. But you can see it there. Isn't it fascinating?
So then there are more than one connection to Roslyn as well. And I bet you some of the proportions, because if you look at that roof, some of the proportions look pretty similarly. I haven't been to either, but this looks, just from what I'm seeing in pictures and now video. Well, thank you for this awesome video. One
of the kings of England came back from Crusade and hadn't particularly been a good king. I think it was in the 15th century. It's quite late on. And he did a pilgrimage on his knees to this well. That's where he came.
He walked on his knees the whole way?
Yeah, he came all the way from somewhere like
That's a traditional way
Winchester to here. Yeah.
To pay your respect. Well, that's how you're meant to get to holy sites in pilgrimage.
Yeah.
On your knees.
Yeah. Look at those.
There you go. Look at those. Look at those.
This is just incredible.
Yeah, you can see the well there.
Yeah, so that's the one I was looking for, because you can see it. It's not a man-made well. It's just continuously, and then it goes under here, and this is the pool that Billy swam in.
Oh yeah.
And it's worth noting that it's what's the temperature? It's absolutely freezing.
Yeah, it's pretty well bang on. It's bang on 0, I think, most of the time. If you're lucky, it might vary by a degree either way. So,
because it's coming, from deep in the earth.
Yeah, it doesn't freeze in winter. So So obviously it doesn't go into the minus, but at the same time it doesn't get warm in summer. So even when it's in full sun, it doesn't. That's incredible shot of it. That one. That's it.
You said this is on top of a hill.
You go up a hill, you travel up a hill into the town of Holywell, and it's at the top of the valley. So the water coming out of this goes all the way down the valley, and lo and behold, at the bottom there's another abbey, which I'm not going to go into because we'll be here all night, but there's another abbey at the bottom. But this at the top, this has been preserved, it's been protected for, what you're looking at now is probably 700 or 800 years. And before that, there was stuff that was 1,000 years old that we know is built into the building. And then before that, obviously, the well was already there. Then you got the legend, that takes you back to 600. Then Arthur's Court's 500 AD. Before you know it, you're back into, early Celtic times, early Christian times. You're back at the beginning of 2,000 years ago without even thinking about it. So it's an amazing site.
Dude, this is fascinating. I have to point it out as well, because just look at the top of the arches. Okay, if we can just put our focus on where the windows start up there. Yep, all those. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. If you look on either side, they're asymmetrical. Okay, which is silly. Okay, look.
Yeah.
Look at the very top one in the middle. It looks like, number one, it's been chiseled off. And same to the right. You've got the 4-petal to the right, and then you have another 4-petal to the left. Do you see what I'm talking about? At the very top.
Yeah, they're not the same.
Now, if you drop down again, they're not only not the same symbol, they're at different angles. Do you see how they're slightly off? The one on the right slightly higher than the one on the left. The one directly below the center.
The easiest way to spot that is right in the middle of where all the lines come down at the top of the columns. You can see the two columns are not facing in the same direction.
Yep, those right
down
there.
Here.
Exactly. And then the down parts that hang out, the ones over to the side as well, they're a little off. Now, I don't think
they're not perfectly mirroring each other.
What I'm seeing here, though, is if you think about chord structure in music, you've got like your root, fifth, and octave. But if you're playing different tones, major, diminished, and all those, you're going to be adding different integers, right? Little increments. So those would vary. And if you're talking about black keys versus white on a piano, they're just slightly off, right? And that would be a frequency adjustment, maybe that's made in the tuning of the building.
They will have chanted. They will have chanted inside this structure, I'm sure.
It definitely has cymatic reliefs on front of it. But again, it looks chiseled off. I've got to get to this site, guys. I'm losing my fucking mind on just the picture. I want to go touch it. Dude, I love this. It is just thank y'all for sharing these pictures. What an awesome thing to bring us here. And what a beautiful story to relate as well, your experience about this.
It's also really interesting because I don't normally take photos ever inside chapels because, well, first of all, I'm just in deep experience. And second of all, like, it's not very, it's frowned upon, just not so respectful. But I took so many photos and videos and I didn't know why. And I was just like, all right,
so you can bring here.
Yeah,
nerd out about it.
Now we know, to share.
God, it's just so interesting. If you guys are out there, connect with Mark. All the ways to fund them both are down in the show description. Go hang out with them on their pilgrimage. They're doing this now. So go meet them at one of these sites, bring them some tea or something, and go explore this and take a bunch of pictures. And then show them to me.
Thursday, it's
right there.
Avebury, then it's Wells, then we finish at Glastonbury.
Oh, sorry, you want me to pause it?
Okay. Friday, no, you can leave it running. Friday, we're in Glastonbury. Saturday, we'll start in Glastonbury. Then in the afternoon, we're heading for Boscastle, where the Witchcraft Museum is, which is further into Cornwall. And then by Sunday, we will be at Marazion, which is Mount St. Michael down in Cornwall.
Yeah, and so that is the second from the top of the Archangel Michael, the sword of Archangel Michael, which is the ley line, which has seven Archangel Michael holy sites in all different countries that connect perfectly across the earth on a ley line, all sites where he has been spotted and seen and done miracles. I've been to one of them already in the south of Italy. Absolutely mind-blowing. I would love to talk about that one sometime. And so we're going now to this one, which will be the second one I'm going to. And I don't know when this is coming out, but that'll be from the 7th to the 13th. And I'm offering candle service there. So if anyone wants me to do a healing for them in that church, I will.
We're going to do a quick turnaround on this. So you guys will have time for folks to connect with you on your journey.
Awesome.
Yeah. Quick turnaround. This is incredible. Incredible. I'm blown away by this, guys.
Well, people will see us in Glastonbury on the days we're there. The Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, they'll see us. They'll spot us because it's only a small village. So, yeah,
and maybe you guys could do a live or something while you're out there, and just call me on Instagram and do an Instagram live.
Oh yeah, we could do an Instagram live while we're there.
Or
that
just
would be
share
cool.
that energy.
We'll just make sure we've got media with us, so we record what we find.
So
the last
cool.
time I went to Glastonbury, here's just a quick story about that. I was walking from, all the sites are very close together, and I was walking from one site to the Tor, which is like the most famous site. It's the very top of the tower, very top of the hill. There's this tower, and walking there, I all of a sudden noticed, oh, I'm in a scene from a dream I had 2 years ago.
What?
Like, so vivid. There was Holly to the left of me, the exact placement of where the sun and the clouds were, the pub on the right, and it was just such a beautiful thing. And then I'm walking up the Tor, like up the hill to the top of the mountain, and I start channeling this song that I've never heard before, and just coming out of me. And then I see someone approaching, and she's singing the same song.
What?
Just like passing, yeah. I mean, it was so extraordinary what I went through while I was there, and I channeled like a whole course called Chalice of Light, actually, which was like a full day course for women. Just from being there, like it all just came. There's so much healing there. It's so beautiful. So I can't wait to see what happens now, because that was 2 years ago, 3 years. That was 3 years ago. So. And these sites as well, like each time you go, it's like another initiation, another deeper level into it that you're sort of like permitted to access as well.
Yeah. So Brian Allen was talking about going to that chapel again, Rosalind. I just keep bringing it up. He's seen portals open there and all this kind of stuff because he's visited it so many times. He can tell where it's at. And it is interesting. You start not only what sites you're called to, but also what sites you're called to spend time in. And again, I think it is this grid where they're just sort of not battling, but circumventing this negative egregore that's been built up, and to kind of cleanse the area a little bit, give it a fresh shot so that it can amplify the reason it existed in the first place, which is to be healing. Just interesting. You need to come in and clean that shit up first.
I mean, I've said all along that everything that has been bolted onto Glastonbury to do with Arthur is a distraction away from how powerful and how important and how ancient Glastonbury is. You've almost got to, take the Arthur stuff and move it out of the way to get at the real thing. Which I
definitely did.
Yeah, I've got no problem with Glastonbury being a super site. It is what it is. And then they just go and smear all this. You can blame one of the kings of England for doing that, because he did the whole digging up Arthur at Glastonbury thing. It was only from the 1200s.
But it's also by design to distract.
It is. It's, yeah.
And it's also by design to distract and discover. And I think that this is the part we're at now, where we can kind of appreciate the fuckery. Right. I'm in this little escape room vibe with this place, to where I see all of it. And Markov told you this for a long time, that really those discoveries were waiting on you.
Well, these are.
Yeah.
These Arthurian ones are.
Oh,
and that's why you don't even need to worry about, like, can you believe these fools did it over? Of course they did. So that they had to pretend to do some busy work until you showed up. And then now that Jaya's there, you two are, I see you're going to get some really interesting permissions. So just go ahead, and I would say that that's maybe the next thing y'all can prepare yourselves for, is like getting over the fact that you get special access to places. I'm going to just say that that's just part of your life now, and that you just get exceptional treatment.
True,
we already know it to be true. The doors are already opening. What we didn't realise is when we go to Boscastle on the Saturday, the museum actually shuts on the Sunday.
Yeah, it's actually the last day it's open for quite a while, which
of course,
coincidentally
shutting for a refit.
I don't believe in such things. I know y'all don't either.
I just wanted to touch on one thing before we move on. Yeah. Like when you were saying about, having the being able to move into like seeing the places that are not seen by everyone else and feeling the energies. It's the same thing as like deciding to sit and meditate, as hard as it is, because it's like the ones who don't do the work are not going to receive the the upgrades, the downloads, the information. And it's the same thing with these sites.
Yeah.
It's like if you just go as a tourist, which nothing wrong with that at all. But if you're just like, oh, this is, like I didn't even go to King Arthur's tomb in Glastonbury because I'm like, okay, well, I'm not here for that. And also, like, I know there's more here. So it's kind of like a quest and a reward, just like inner work, which I think is worth noting.
Dude, Mary and I were talking about this morning. It was funny. They were talking about cities and all this kind of stuff. And New York was one of these. We haven't been there, but I'd only go to see all the hidden history, architecture, like this kind of shit amongst all the nasty stuff that they built. We're just not called to places like that. Stellium 7, a dear friend of ours, shout out. He went up to North Dakota, and instead of going to the monstrosity that is this, Mount Rushmore up there with the faces, blasted into the rock. He was pointing at it in the background in his footage and showing where he was going to an ancient tree site. So I think that these things are sort of distractions for the muggles, if you will, and they, can go keep themselves busy in some little manicured amusement park, but really there's all sorts of interesting things. Yeah, the King Arthur pub, right? Go get blasted with a pint, because while you're out doing that, we're out in these cool places where you're not. And I like that. I like that it's such a distraction because then people get so certain, don't they, Mark? Especially in your field.
Well, yeah, it makes it a lot easier for us because it gets them out of the way.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. I see it as such a gift. God, what a beautiful gift. And you two are showing up for it.
Something that's so cool about the Valley Crew, which is the first site that we showed, is like, I was a little bit irritated that everyone was running around when I'm like trying to tune into like the blood of Jesus, but at the same time, like nobody knows it's there.
That's right.
And there's so many sites like this that have actually been ruined by tourism, and it's like it's just about like buying a plastic, whatever, or like the Mona Lisa, for example, where every picture that you see is like 9,000 cell phones taking a picture, versus like nobody knows until this airs that this is here, and so that's so special. And there aren't any egregores projected onto it or random energies projected onto it. So it's very pure in that way and very clean, and you don't have to dig through as much of that bullshit to receive and tune into that frequency, which is also very, very cool and special. And I could lay on the stone, like what a gift,
Yeah. How cool. Because again, it hidden in plain sight, and it's not for them, it's for y'all. Yeah, this is so cool.
And that was one of the messages that Joseph was sharing when he was kind of like giggling of like, they were looking right here with all these $1 million machines, and we're right here. Was like, it's for people like you. It's for people who are on a quest, who want to receive this energy. And just like the Grail is cool, like historically, architecturally, but like that little piece of it healed that little girl, and that's really the point of all these sites.
Well, the belief in that little piece of it healed that little girl, if we can be honest.
Maybe.
Well, yeah.
Like a placebo, right? Like anything else. Does she hear it's coming from that cup? And I mean, people do this all the time. They mail these old ladies holy water and they feel that they're healed, but they just have so much belief in it, And,
exactly.
and I've got nothing against
them, does it matter?
Exactly. Who cares?
We don't care how it works.
It's beautiful. I love it. I think it's awesome. There's definitely a magic and a power here for sure. I've got to get amongst it. This is just too cool. Just too cool.
This is the first podcast where your head has exploded and you really wish to be here. Well, you need to be here.
This is episode 331. And what's fascinating is you're still blowing my mind after 300 episodes. So that's what's so great, is that my mind still gets blown. I think it's wonderful. I'm not bored of any of this stuff. It just keeps getting more amazing. And especially the things that are right there in front of us.
Do we have time to talk more about these sites a little bit?
Yeah, let's do some more, and then we'll hit into the afterthought here in just a little bit. But please, I'd like for you to say what you want about it.
Put up there, but do you want to do your site?
Sorry, what'd you say, Brandon?
Sorry, we just
we'll carry on this or as long as y'all'd like, and then we'll hit it over to the afterthought. We're gonna do some more of this and some other stuff, but just whenever you're ready. There's no rush for that.
I just wanted to mention one cool thing, which is like the impetus of what brought you to say, like, let's do this podcast, other than the holy water, was that, so while I was sitting on the tomb with my hands pressed in, I started getting all these symbols. And I know that like when I'm in a channel that deep, I'll often like, when I come back out of it, like forget. So I just like grabbed a piece of paper from my purse and like tried to document the symbols as best I could. And so I'm writing it on the stone. So it's all like, it's, not like on a piece of paper, but not like on a proper, so it's a little, but this is, and it's very simple, right?
Well,
this
yeah, but it's the
symbol.
Merkaba. It's the male and female, and then you put them together, and it's Merkaba, right?
Yeah,
Which also works
and
out to a hexagon if you trace it.
so this was the main symbol, and I just wish I could show it with the frequency because of how it was given to me. Like this just looked like lines, but it was so important, and it was so beautiful, and it was holding so many codes. It was so deeply encoded, this symbol. And so the very next day, Mark's friend came over, who is an occultist and like a practitioner of many different things. And I was upstairs deep in my work, and he's about to leave, and I come downstairs, and he's carrying his stuff that he brought over to show Mark out. And all of a sudden he stops at the door, and he turns around, and he's like, "Can I show you something? Do you have a minute?" And I was like, "Okay." So I like shut my laptop, and I'm like, I can take a little bit of a break. And he shows me his
Oh, shit.
stick that he carved himself.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
this carving that he made in his stick.
Yeah.
So
It's
that
found
was
all over, by the way. It's also been apprehended by quite a few folks. Red Hot Chili Peppers use that as one of their logos. Also, Walmart,
They do.
unfortunately, uses that as their logo as well, the yellow thing. But it looks like to be the male and female symbol inverted, which then make the Merkaba. Is that what this ruin is, or what does it symbolize that you know?
so for this specific man who did this, this to him, he said this is the 4 directions in Cornish witchcraft.
Which is where we're going next, incidentally.
What's the other
Cornwall.
two? Oh, is it? What's the center line then?
It's just that's how they do the
That's just how
Yeah.
that lineage shows
If
the
you tipped it side
the 4
on, it would
directions.
become an equal arm cross. So they've just tipped it back the other way. Because Cornwall is at a funny angle. But anyway, that's where he's got that from.
I think I'll do, because like I said, the symbol is what it is. It's a few lines, but the frequency that was deeply encoded in the symbol, I think I will do like a group meditation on Zoom to like bring that frequency in to the room and into the body as well, because it's very, oh man, yeah.
Which would
there's,
make
like,
sense of why it's apprehended within the matrix. Again, Walmart's logo and such. They would apprehend it and give their power to it, right? Instead of what it really may
yeah.
mean.
And
It's
if you
almost like
notice,
changing the music from 432 to 440 rather. It's the same like
exactly
song,
what I
but
was going
it's
to
a
say. Yeah,
inverted
it's
frequency.
slightly distorted.
Yeah, yeah. How cool! And this does look like ruins, right? Like
It does look
Celtic.
like a ruin. Yeah, I'm trying to zoom out.
Okay.
It's
it does
very
look like a
interesting
ruin.
though. How cool that he just stopped.
I mean, just, yeah, the way it unfolded was just so interesting. What did you want to see, Mark?
If you just come along, no, that way, that's it. Second one along, that one.
Yeah,
Because that's
look at
what we
that whimsical
saw
ass
as we
picture.
drove away. I mean, that's where we came in when we were trying these photographs out. You said, we've got to put that one in somewhere. So it's in. That's directly next door to Valley Crucis. We drive past it on the way out. And it's Dinas Bran, which is the castle of the crow, but in Arthurian legends, it's Castle Corbenic. And up to medieval times, there was some kind of a Grail held in that castle. And when the English attacked the castle, the Welsh had already gone, they'd already set fire to it, and the Grail had disappeared. So that is widely recognised as being the Grail Castle, Castle Corbenic out of Parsifal. So you're looking at it, and that's next door to the Abbey. That's virtually the view that you get when you look from the Abbey grounds.
And it looks like
There
behind
it
the
is.
hill, the left where the two hills meet, there's something right in between that. Is there some ruins
Well,
back there?
that goes off on a limestone plateau, and there's a burial ground up there, and one of them is referred to as Arthur's tomb, but we think that's a later Victorian thing. But these things are all put there as clues, you know? So
It's interesting too. The spacing sort of that of Orion's belt. Is it in that sort of a line? Is it a line like that?
I've never actually done the as above, so below. I've never done the necessary comparison to see. Obviously, the bump that it's on is natural. The lumps around the ruin are actually an Iron Age hill fort, so that would have been there at the time of King Arthur. Arthur would literally have gone up that path and walked in through into an Iron Age hill fort. Forget the sort of pile of medieval rocks in the middle. It's a big fort. So, this is the great thing. There's a lot of secret tunnels under there, and nobody's explored any of them. The whole hill is supposed to be a honeycomb.
Yep.
So it is an important site, but that is, if you like, the other half of the story, because you've got the Church of Joseph, you've got Valley Crucis. There was a cross there dedicated to Guinevere as well. That's sadly disappeared, and then the next thing you get is that. That's the Grail Castle. So it's a mighty place to be. It really is, and it's all within about a square mile. It's very, very close to each other. All these sites. But yeah, that was about the only other thing I was going to put in.
It's incredible. It's just so whimsical. Like, how beautiful.
It's so beautiful in the UK. It's so beautiful.
We can't wait to go.
Wales especially, I think.
Yeah, and it does look like that as well. That's not been doctored in any way. That is what it's like. You can walk up that path and go and have a look at the Grail Castle. It's a weird castle, actually, because the defences, the keep that was designed to keep the soldiers in, would only hold about 12 knights and 12 horses. But right in the centre of it all, right in the middle of the ruin, is a little tiny square foundation where the chapel was. So if you run into the chapel and stand in the middle of it, whatever they thought was the Grail at that time, that's the Grail Chapel. Another Grail Chapel that's within the castle. I don't think there's anything there now. I think it disappeared about 800 years ago. Who knows where? But it's an interesting site. It was built to protect something really important, not people, but something.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more going on underground over there. Yeah. Jaya, I'm curious with your intuitions, what you would find walking around there, and if you could sort of map out some underground shit.
Yeah, so we didn't stop there.
Yeah, we passed
so
it.
I didn't go there,
Yeah,
but already what I can see just from looking at the image and feeling it is like it's almost like the top is, I guess you would say, like the tip of the iceberg. It's like, yeah, it's a beautiful old building, but it has like what's inside is like so much more and so luminous and definitely like a honeycomb. And it reminds me of like being on Mount Shasta, for example, where the entire thing it's all underground, and it's like a whole underground city, crystalline city. And it's kind of like, yeah, the mountain is cool, but what's inside of the mountain?
Yeah, that's the wrapper, right? You want to get to the present on the inside.
That's another target. Yeah, another target for GeoFizz that they've not done yet.
We'll go out there together, guys. This is our next target together.
Oh, yeah.
The Grail Hill, the Grail Fort,
Grail Castle.
Grail Castle. Way cooler name. God, that's awesome. It just like blows my mind. Like I'm just taking, I don't know. I feel like I'm on the tip of psychometry because I can kind of go there, but not, and kind of definitely see more going on, but not. And so it's interesting. It's just beautiful, guys.
Yeah, there's also, I'm seeing more and more and more as I look at it. There's also there's different dimensions, and there's a lot of different things buried there from different time periods as well, like both chronologically and dimensionally. So like linear time historically, and then also dimensionally. It's very, I would say it's like a treasure trove for sure, that mountain.
Yeah. There's something going on.
Spent a lot of time there.
Yep.
But we only wandered past the bottom of it because we didn't have enough time.
Because you didn't have me, and you were saving it for when I get out there with y'all, and then we're all going to go. We're going to hike the whole bottom of that thing and just figure it out.
Absolutely.
God, this is
Let's
just
do it.
Cool. Oh, all right. What else? What else do you have to show us on these? This is just so cool.
I think that
you could go to that one. That's an interesting shot. Okay, simply because it kind of illustrates where we're at. The furthest distant hills up in the sky, they're the Pennines. So you're in Lancashire. You start coming back, and the town that you can see very clearly in a stripe, that's Liverpool, and that's that river. That's the River Mersey that runs along one side of the Wirral, which is the next bit of land in the middle. That's the Wirral. That's actually the bit of ground that sticks out. The nearest river is actually the River Dee. So that's the one that runs through Chester, which is Camelot, which is another story altogether. And the bump in the foreground, which is Caergui, is Innes of Alloc. That's the hill fort of a chieftain called Avallo, and you're looking at Avalon. That's the actual, real, physical location for Avalon. That's the hill fort Arthur was taken to after his final battle to be healed by the priestesses. So that is pretty much everything in one shot, because you've got the Liverpool side of it, you've got the Wirral side of it, and you've got the Wales side of it, and you've got the two rivers in between. So it's everything. It's just all the territory we've covered.
Was this picture taken from that red dot, the larger red dot on your map?
No, this is
from the observatory.
This is taken from a site called Mole Arthur. The observatory is, if you take a step onto the Wirral, which is that middle strip of land, the observatory is just off to the left.
Okay.
Yeah, just where the dark area is. It's just over there. So it's the only view you can get of everything. Do you know, in one photo? That's it. That's all the sites. Lands of Arthur, Avalon. Then you've got the Wirral, you've got Bidston, you've got Joseph. He would have moved through that area. Then on the other side, well, you've got the Goddess River is next, the River Mersey, Ray Belisama. Then in the foreground, you've got the God River, which is the Dee. And then you move on to Liverpool, which of course wasn't there in Arthur's day. You're moving off then into the tribes of the Satanti. So you've got pretty much the whole geography there, just captured in one shot. And that's what we intended to cover, because we drove along pretty much all of those pieces of land at one point or another. We've covered most of it. So the Abbey, actually, where we're looking at it now, the Abbey and the castle would be behind us on this photo. They're behind us.
It's so interesting to think that all this happened in just that area that's covered in that photo right there, that you could walk in, what, a week, the circumference of? But it's so interesting all of that stuff happened right there.
Yeah, certainly if you had a mode of transport. Let's assume you're back in the 1st century and your mode of transport is a horse. Well, you could ride all of that territory in less than a week. Easily.
It's kind of like that little circle they have around the Mesopotamia and say the whole Bible was written right here. You know, like everything. It's a very small segment of geography where a lot of history happened.
Yeah, it's basically that. So the first church in the world was founded there in 54 by Joseph of Arimathea, and the oldest Christian remains are in that area. So it's awesome. It's an awesome piece of geography.
And this is just part one.
Oh,
you guys still have so much more to look forward to. We're gonna have to get you back on for part 2 when you guys are wrapping this up. Let me know and we'll schedule it for sure.
Yeah.
And in part 2, there's like 6 sites or something that we're going to. So
just document, because you know now what we want. Bring the pictures, bring the videos. Yes. Those are great. And thank you, by the way, of being conscientious to lower the volume as you played those, as you talked over them. That's conscientiousness, Jaya. And I don't know if I'm just letting you know we picked it out and appreciated it. Thank you.
Yeah, she's amazing, technology. She's far better than I am.
Both of you guys have your skill sets. And this is what's interesting, too, about what Jai was talking about anybody maybe has the skills to do what you do, but really, I'm not interested in it. And that's another thing that's fascinating to me is you're crushing it at that. And I trust what you feel with it. And so we, like Mark and I, are focused on our energy on other things, right? Building other skill sets. And this is where it kind of comes down to that you two are teamed up with your different skill sets, but you bring such a beautiful third thing to this when you combined. And this is the Voltron analogy I've been using forever, Captain Planet, whatever. It takes all of those individual things that are totally different. They need to be different so that they can combine to be this better thing together. And none of them are stepping on each other's toes. Nobody's like, no, I'm getting a psychic this, and no, I'm getting a psychic. We trust you, Jaya, because you're crushing it at that. Mark, what's the history on it? Okay, cool. And then what do we see here with this? And this is the escape room part of it. And really, again, the story I tell all the time is I did an escape room with my folks and Mary was the only one when we were stuck at this one particular part. She walked over to a lamp quietly, turned it on, and the message was there under the lamp. But it took her ability to think that way, her skill set amongst the skill set none of us had was just to think to go do that. It seems so simple, but it was so perfect. And it's this kind of combination where everybody's now coming together. This is something I've been screaming, Mark, you do as well in the UFO Bigfoot field. Like you guys are yelling at each other about the same thing, just come together and see where you're the same rather than arguing, right? And you two are marrying concepts like this beautifully. It's such a harmonious thing rather than a dick measuring contest, for lack of a better term on the fly here.
Yeah,
just really cool.
Everybody plays a part and everyone has their own skill set to bring and everyone, I always say, the reason we know that we need each other is because there's not just one of us here. There's so many of us. And that's how we know that we're meant to interact and work together. And yeah, like it takes a lifetime to be able to do the work that I do. And so you can't do everything. Like I could never, like Mark has spent a lifetime amassing this amazing wealth of knowledge.
Doing whatever it
I
is
would
I
never
do.
be able to do both of those. No one would ever be able to do both of those things because they each take, a lifetime of dedication. But when we bring them all together, each person plays a role. Absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful. So beautiful. And this is why authors, you don't have to edit your books. You're not supposed to do that. Have somebody else get a third eye on that
absolutely.
shit. Just stream of consciousness it out. Have somebody else take a look at it. That's my one little side rant there. What do you guys say we kick it over to the afterthought here? Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
Badass. Well, then here, I'm going to unshare your screen if you don't mind, and then ask you guys one more question, and then we will bow out here or get to our afterthought here, which you guys can check the link down in the show description. Great way to support your favorite show. We also have a bunch of this stuff hosted over on Patreon that's nowhere else. It's not in the main feed. Frequency Theorist is one of these things. Our Cinematic Alchemist series with Lewis Snooks, another UK guy. He's over there in London, actually. Those series are all hosted over there for absolutely free, guys. We are doing our damnedest to show you that there is other things out there other than YouTube, because we're tired of sitting here saying, hey, we'd like to put this thing out, but YouTube won't let us, and tiptoeing through the tulips with those assholes. So check the link down there, guys. Most of the things over on Patreon are absolutely free. So don't get turned off by the, you've got to like me. And no, the free pass for a week is always turned on over there. So if you just want to come take a look around, you don't have to sign up, but you can get access to everything. Do that in the link below. But we are going to go into a banger afterthought here. I've got several things written down I'm super excited to talk to y'all about and continue this awesomeness. But before we let you run, we just let everybody let us know. Mark, we'll start with you, sir, if you don't mind. And Jaya, we'll end it with you. What gets you out of bed every single morning, keeps you moving forward, Mark?
Oh, answering questions that have never been answered. The chase is better than the catch, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, definitely. It's life's a journey, not a destination.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Yeah. The answer to life is a mastery of questions, right? So absolutely beautifully said. Jaya, you get the last word here before we get into our afterthought. Again, all the ways to find both incredible folks are going to be located down below. Definitely take them up on that. And Frequency Theorists, the bells will be located down there where we talk about Jaya, but she's not there. But Jaya, what gets you out of bed and keeps you moving forward every single morning?
Definitely doing the impossible in terms of healing with my clients, like healing, quote, incurable diseases and things that aren't supposed to work, and basically like being a living vessel of the miraculous and letting that move through me for my clients. Nothing makes me happier than that. Nothing makes me happier than, like, I was told, for 15 years that I couldn't get pregnant, and now I have a baby, and seeing, like, I was told this is an incurable decision, I'd be dead in 3 months and I'm still living 7 years later. That kind of stuff absolutely gets me out of bed, like being the living example of that. And that's why I work so hard to maintain my practice, so that I can let that move through me for people, and seeing that absolutely gets me out of bed.